Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Two Iron Lefty podcast. We're going to kick off our second episode today. I'm Dan Mahar, and with me is my good friend Matt Harris. We've been golf buddies for a long time. Some good, some bad over the years, but basically just two guys that love the game. So the podcast is going to be all about our experiences on the course, which I think will reflect a lot of yours. We're not pros, we're not beginners. We're somewhere in that mushy middle where I think everyone is. And Matt, I understand you have had the luck of getting out in March already of this year.
I have actually. That was last weekend. Courses around here were opening up. Actually, funnily enough, it was a Gulf North course that we got out to. Originally, a buddy of mine at work, we were going to go to the St. Mary's Country Club here in town. And one thing led to another, and we couldn't get on. So we wound up hightailing it over to a place called the Fox. And it was about what you expect for a first round of the year. I mean, very rusty. I managed to pop up my first two shots on the opening tee box there, and it's always great when you've got a cast of about 50 in the peanut gallery behind you, just kind of yucking it up. So yeah, it was a rough first hole. I won't lie. But no, I mean, it got better as the round went along, and the course proved to be in surprisingly good shape, considering it was, the third week in March. I I I have no complaints about that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully things get better from there.
Anytime you can get out in March, you're doing okay.
Yeah, yeah, like that was the weird thing is that I'm looking around, like started the day wearing typical golf gear, but then I threw on the hoodie just to stay warm, and I played for the first, I don't know, three or four holes with that. And by the time we were getting ready to tee off on number five, I'm like, yeah, this thing's got to go. So out it goes, and it was, I got to admit, it was a little weird getting home that night and seeing I had a sunburn. I was like, "Wow, that's odd for March."
Yep. I had a little bit of sunburn myself, but unfortunately it was not from the golf course. So, but yeah, anytime you can get outside and swing a few clubs in March in Ontario, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that kind of carries us into our first round, or our first topic of the day here, and best rounds we've ever played. Not necessarily while we're in each other's company, but you know, um, I'm sure you've got one or two that stand out in your mind.
Yeah. I mean, there's always a few. You always remember those rounds that you had that you really loved, and I'm just going to qualify this by saying, when we're talking scores, I have to defend myself right off the top because you're not going to hear a lot of 72s and 73s, but at the same time, I must say I'm the most honest golfer you'll ever see. No mulligans, no do-overs, no gimmies. So I feel like my score actually does kind of mean something. That said, had to throw that caveat in. Um, Probably the best one I remember was I know a favorite course of both of ours is Gray Silo. We like that and playing that Waterloo. And I think the
Oh,
first 6-7 times I played there, struggled. Didn't I think there's 4 different tee blocks there. Usually played the second one, comparable to what white or silver would be on most courses, and never really scored well. Was struggling high 90s, over 100, not playing very well. Naturalized areas all over,
yeah.
easy to roll off and take penalties. So I was taking 6-7 penalty strokes around. So then went out one day and we decided we're going to play the back tees just for kicks. I said, well, can't be any worse. And just scorched it. Just, I don't know if it's the setup of the tees, a little bit longer off the tee or whatnot, but got an 81 that day, and it was extremely close to the 70s. The only reason it slipped into the 80s was kind of choked on the last hole. Took, I believe, a 7 on 18 to
Hmm.
fall into the 80s, but it was basically as good a round as you'll see me play. I just stayed out of trouble all day, put everything in the fairway, and once if you play silo in the fairway, it's actually a pretty easy course.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the one that sticks out for me. There's been a few like that, but I don't go legitimately low 80s on tougher courses too often. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have two rounds that kind of stand out in my mind. One was that, again, at a course you and I like to play, and that's Savannah. And I will preface this by saying you and I have played this course enough together that that usually by the 17th hole, that's when everything completely goes off the rails for me. I think out of all of the times that I've played that course, I've managed to play the 18th hole in par or better once, and that happens to be this round that I'm talking about. I think I shot an 82. I had three different approach shots hit the flag or the flag stick coming in, and it gave me such an easy time that I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and like that course for whatever reason just suits my eye. We talked last time. There are a couple of holes where it's a little okay. It's a little weird here, but and there's the one. I think it's the fifth or the sixth hole where you're basically hitting 250-yard shots into the green.
Yeah, it's number 4. Yeah.
And then you're turning, and yeah. So I mean, but yeah, it was like the round that I'm referring to. Again, it was just a matter of things breaking exactly the way I needed them to. And now, mind you, 18 almost did get the better of me. I managed to drop a 30-foot putt for par that I probably had no reason to drop. And the guy I was playing with at the time just turned and looked at me and didn't say a word. He just shook his head the entire time I walked over to get my ball. And yeah, so I mean, that was a lot of fun. The second one, I think, actually, I believe I was playing with you when this happened. We were at the Elmira Golf Club, and anybody who's played there that's listening to this knows the first hole is drivable.
Yes.
I think we were playing the whites or silvers or whatever it was that day, and I drove the first green. I got a great kick instead of winding up in the bunker or the crap on the right hand side. I got a kick and rolled onto the front edge. So that made my round a lot easier in terms of playing with confidence. Um, and actually, I believe it was the 17th hole, which is the oddly shaped par four, where I hit it out over the waist area and rolled it up onto the front of the green. And the guys were standing there clapping for me when I walked up. And I'm like, ew, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, guys. But yeah, so I had a good time. I don't remember my exact score, probably like 87, 88, something like that. But it was just one of those times where, it kind of, I felt it surging the entire round. And I felt that, I'm one or two really good shots away from a really good round for me. So yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun that day. And I want to take time here to amend my underrated list from episode one. Elmira, I think, doesn't get enough due for being as good a course as it is. You don't find a lot of ho-hum holes on that course. And yeah, I would say that the layout and the course condition are always, A plus in my book. So yeah, I probably should have made mention of that the first time around.
No, I'm glad you did though, Matt, because I haven't played it often, probably 4 or 5 times, but I totally agree. Great course. Hard to have a bad time there. And it was the source of my best round last year. I posted an 83 there, but same thing. It was kind of funny. I put my tee shot on number 1 on the green, which was, I mean, that shot. It's a tough shot, just so perfect first shot. Second hole, dribbled it about 30 yards off the tee to the left. I thought, oh, here we go. It's falling apart already on hole 2. So I took out the 3 hybrid and put it on the green from there. So funny what confidence will do in golf. You get a couple good shots in early and suddenly you're feeling it. And I just never lost that the rest of that round, partly because, like you said, Elmira's condition is so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, and this is one of the things, again, we talked about last time, is when you, like, we're not sitting here saying everything has to be immaculate all the time. But at the same time, when you arrive at a course and it's been looked after and they actually care about giving you a good user experience, that goes a long way. And oddly enough, that can translate into playing better if you're feeling good about where you are. So,
For sure.
yeah.
Tough course conditions are fine, but unfair course conditions make it go south in a hurry. So
Yeah, that's true. But on the other side of that topic, I mean, this isn't something that anybody really kind of likes to talk too much about. But I mean, worst round ever. I can start it off by saying that this goes back more than a few years. and it was my very first visit to Thundering Waters in Niagara Falls. And it was one of those courses that, I'd heard so much about. You'd heard all the press about how John Daly had tried to drive the falls. And so, yeah, I was, beat up. I was really looking forward to going and playing there. And I was with a friend of mine, Norm Woods, who anybody in Ontario golf will remember from running Golf Scene magazine. And he used to take me all over, playing this course, playing that course. He'd call me up at work and we'd share a joke at my former employer's expense. Won't get into that again. But yeah, I mean, my first trip to Thundering Waters. Um, Now, Norm had brought another friend with me, and I won't name this person, but this guy had absolutely no clue about golf etiquette. I mean, you would think that if you hang out with golf people enough and if you play enough golf that you are going to pick up on certain things, like maybe, I don't know, not walking across somebody's line on the green while lining a putt. And yeah, if this guy did that to me once, I'm betting he did it at least half of the holes. So like we're talking 8, 9 times. And sometimes he did it more than once. Like he was, I don't know what exactly he was thinking, but he, hit his putt and he starts walking, and for whatever reason, he walked across my line when going the other way would have got him there faster. But then he stopped and went back. I was just like, really? Okay. Yeah. So anyway, that got into my head a bit, I will admit, and I'm pretty sure that that contributed to me, sculling shots and coming up early, and just wanting to get the experience over with, basically, because once it got into my head in those days, you know it had all kinds of fun in there. I think I wound up like a 114 or 115. And yeah, it was kind of a long, crappy ride home on the QEW for me on that day. So yeah, that's my fun times. How about you?
Well, I mean, along the similar veins, when I think back to the worst rounds, the round I just truly didn't enjoy, they're almost always related to other golfers, like you mentioned. And so I'll tell them quickly because I got two that kind of were tied for the number one worst. But first one was at Dune. Of course, I love the course itself in Kitchener, but the experience is often not good. And this round I had gone out. It was supposed to be a great day with I was out with my dad, and my uncle. Hadn't golfed with my uncle ever. This was we teed off at about 10:30 in the morning. We're supposed to be home for 5:30, so plenty of time, 7 hours to
Right.
get back. Teed off at 10:30, miserably slow, just absolutely brutal. No one ahead of us with any etiquette, any pace, just constantly waiting, waiting, waiting. No sign of marshals, no, absolutely nothing. Time's ticking away. We're over 6 hours into the round. We're just finishing up 15. So it's now 5 o'clock. We come up to tee at 16, four groups on the tee,
Ooh.
a five sim up ahead with a camera taking pictures and the whole bit. Just absolutely miserable. It's the only time in my life we had to walk off around early because of pace of play, and just we had no choice. So on the way out, we passed by the clubhouse and just mentioned him, like, guys, you got five sims out there. There's no pace. No one's doing anything. We're 6.5 hours into this round and we're still 3 holes to go. Didn't even respond to us. Not a story, not a what. No, so the clubhouse couldn't be less sympathetic. Didn't care. So it took me a while to get back to Dune. So there was that one, and then the one other one I wanted to mention, just the under the "Don't Be That Guy" file, was I went out to play one day with this time with my dad and a different uncle, and we got, of course, paired up with a fourth guy. So me having to ride with the other guy, I'm thinking, no problem, whatever, fine. Hopefully he's a nice guy. Started off playing fine. This was out at Dundee. I was playing fine, but guy started giving me tips on every shot. Oh, you lift, you brought your head, you got to keep your shoulder down. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, these shots were good. Well, like, why are you giving me, like, they were fine. Like, just let me be. But every shot, he would, I could start to hear his voice as I was in the downswing. Like, oh, you're standing too close. And it just got so in my head that I just completely fell apart. I shot something like a 56 or 57 on the front nine. After nine, he left. He had to go.
That's a
And
shame.
I just like, I was so livid on the back nine. I smoked it. I shot probably something like a 42, 43 in the back nine. It just goes to show it that etiquette thing, who you're playing with, what they're saying, what they can do. Like, just understand golf etiquette, play for yourself. because you can really ruin someone else's experience if you're doing those things, not keeping the pace, not abiding by etiquette, doing all those types of things. So I just wanted to share those stories to say, don't be that guy.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, oh, yeah. That's one thing that I absolutely try ridiculously hard not to do in some company, I should say. Because when I'm golfing with you, I know I don't have to give you tips. I know you can figure it out. I mean, unless you actually turn to me and say, "What the hell did I just do?" Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of guys that I tee it up with, and occasionally they'll turn and ask me, and if honestly, if I've been paying attention, I'll give them my honest feedback. But generally speaking, I'm not an instructor. I have a hard enough time keeping my ball in the fairway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know, at the same time, if somebody's asking you genuinely for help, you don't want to be a complete jerk and say no, I don't think so. So, but yeah,
Yes.
offering it up on every single swing, yeah, I'm pretty sure I would have taken my 9-iron to that guy's ankle.
Yeah.
But
There's a big difference between
nope.
after every shot. And I've seen some ugly golf swings over my time, and some that were very ugly and worked. And I remember golfing with a guy where he had one of the worst swings I've ever seen in my life, and piped it down the middle every time. And I'm like, okay, it
Yeah.
works for you. Instructor might not like the mechanics, but it's working for you. I'm not going to say a word. So yeah.
Well, I guess that kind of brings us up to the next topic. I mean, golf can be incredibly funny when you're not taking it too seriously, or you're not taking yourself too seriously, which, okay, you and I can get into, competitive mode once in a while, but occasionally we're standing on the tee egging each other on, and that usually means, we're out there having a good time, and it's, we're not playing for money or anything. So, but yeah, I mean, what makes you laugh when you're out there?
Well, I mean, I look at golf. The experience is supposed to be fun and funny. I like when there's nice, good banter. No one's taking it too seriously, that kind of thing. But over the years, there's been a number of things that make me laugh. Probably none more. This is just the ridiculousness of it. But on a golf trip in San Diego, we were
Mm,
teeing off on a hole that was about 300, just over 300 yards, 305, 310 to the end of the fairway. And then there was about a 30, 40-yard naturalized area, and then the green. And I absolutely piped my drive, one of the best ones I hit on the trip. And it was about 5 yards short of the end of the fairway. So I had about a 50-yard wedge into the green. Had my golf cart parked 6, 7 feet to my right, naturalized area ahead of me, one of those little signposts just about a foot high saying naturalized area, do not enter.
right.
So I tee up my wedge, 100% skull it straight ahead, hits that sign, bounces sideways over, hits the wheel of my golf cart, comes right back to me. And I swear it was on the exact spot where I had initially hit the ball. I did not have to move an inch to hit my next shot. And believe me, I lobbied with the guys I was playing with that if you don't have to move your feet, the first one shouldn't count, right? Like if you can hit it again for the exact same spot. They didn't give me that one though. I had to count
Yeah.
the stroke, but yeah, it's probably the most ridiculous moment I've had on the course. How about you?
Hmm. Well, I've got a couple actually. So in my former career as a journalist, I would get invited to play in media tournaments every now and then. And there was a guy from somewhere else in the chain of papers that I worked by the name of Chris Clark. And Chris was different. I'm going to throw that out there right now. He's a big burly redheaded guy who never took anything too seriously, which was one of his most endearing qualities, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, so we showed up, and Chris had told the people who were organizing the tournament that he was going to be there late because he had something to cover in the morning, and he had a bit of a drive to get to where the tournament was played. So he caught up to us by about the third or the fourth hole, and he happened to be sharing a cart with me. So he gets his clubs loaded on the bag or the back of the cart, hops in, and we're like, "Yeah, we're just headed to the next tee." And I look down, and he's barefoot. And I'm like, "Do you need time to put your shoes on?" He goes, "No, no, I'm good." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we go and we start playing, and he's barefoot, and he hits his first shot into the crap. And I was just like, "You want to tee another one up there, Chris?" He goes, "No, no, 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 I'll go play that one." I'm like, "Okay." So away he goes, tromping into the rough and cursing, swearing about whatever, and about not having shoes. And I'm just kind of trying not to lose my mind on the fairway. Just I'm just like, yeah, okay. And then he stepped on a thistle, and that's about when I lost it. That's one of the only times I found myself like having to take a knee on the golf course because I was laughing that hard. And he was like, he knew. I mean, like, he was out there having a good. I don't think he intentionally stepped on a thistle. I will say that, but we were just. I think we probably laughed more than we played golf that day. To be perfectly honest, we weren't anywhere near winning the thing, but I would be willing to bet we probably had the most fun out of any foursome out there. And I find a lot of my golf stories come back to my former boss. So another story, you know this guy, John Roberts, big Leaf fan. And this one happened not long after the Leafs had lost in the playoffs to New Jersey in the infamous 666 series. So
Six
for
shots.
6 shots, yeah. So they scored. So let me set this up for people who don't know what I'm talking about. This was at the height of Martin Brodeur's reign in New Jersey and Toronto for the series. So the series went 6 games. Toronto scored 6 goals and got 6 shots in the 6th game and wound up losing. And everything. I mean, like John loved golfing, but he's a lot like you and I, so he'd have his more than his fair share of bad shots. And every time one got away from him, oh, is that a six? Hey, John, I think that's a six. And he'd just turn around and shake his head. And then he'd tell us to shut up, and we'd laugh even harder at him. And we're just like, all right, man, you brought it on yourself. Yeah, those were good times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So, while we're reminiscing a little bit here, I mean, golf is a lot about skill, but it's a lot about luck. I mean, I don't think anybody who's ever played would say anything different. What would you say is the luckiest shot you've ever had?
Well, I'm one of those guys that likes to consider myself fairly unlucky on the golf course, as most I'm sure do. I don't. I always think I never get the right breaks, but I do remember this was a year going back a long time, probably 20 years ago. But I was playing Grand Valley in Cambridge, short little course, kind of tight, but there's a hole in the woods, par three. I want to say it's about 150, 160 yards. Woods on all sides, left, right, and behind the green, literally in the woods. And on the right side, the woods go uphill. So anyway, I'm on the tee with whatever I would have had, 7 iron or something, and kind of skull it and off to the right, and it's going straight over into the woods. I'm like, oh great, this is going to be a penalty shot and the whole bit. It starts going up into the woods, hits the hill, starts rolling around the hill, somehow missing every tree, rolls all the way back down, comes out of the forest onto the green, and ends up about 2 inches from the cut, closest I've ever come to a hole in one for a little tap in. And right after it stops, a golf cart of these two older gentlemen from another hole come driving through the path. They look and see, and they start applauding. They're like, "Great job, buddy! Good job!" I'm like, just gave him the thumbs up and said not a word.
Yeah, I mean, there are times that's all you can do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
uh, mine, I got to go back to that round at Savannah I was talking about earlier. So I haven't been playing particularly well to open this round. And we got to the par four sixth. So that's the one where you've got a treat area, and then you've got a pond, and then the fairway kind of branches off to the left, but then hooks right back around to the right. And the green is, set along the far side of the pond there. And if you hit too long, which on that hole was my usual result, I'd wind up on the little hill, or worse, up into the treat area on top of the hill. So yeah, I'm standing on the fairway, right close to the rough. So I'm maybe, I don't know, 10 yards from the water. And I'm looking at this, and I'm feeling the wind, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, all right. I've got 160 some odd yards in, I'm guessing, because my tee shot was not spectacular by any means. I was happy that it didn't go into the crap or out of bounds or anything. So all right, I pulled the 7-iron and I'm standing there and I can hear my friend Paul barking at me. He goes, "Come on, you're not going to do anything anyway." So I'm like, all right, you're probably right. So I whacked it and I initially thought, okay, I'm going long because I felt the wind kind of pick up just a bit right as I was coming through the ball, and you know, I don't know whether I got extraordinarily lucky or maybe the golf gods decided, yeah, we'll see what happens if we give him one, and had a gust come the other way and knocked out, like the ball literally came straight down and got wrapped up in the flag and rode the flagstick to the ground. I don't know how it didn't wind up in the hole, but again, like you said, I had like a 6-inch putt for birdie, and it was just like I looked over at Paul and I said, "Why are you on the green?" And I got promptly told where to go and how to get there. But yeah, I mean, that was probably the easiest birdie I think I've ever had in my entire life. And yeah, I owe it all to you know line block.
Yeah, well, this is partly why when I said off the top of the show, I don't take gimmies, I don't take mulligans. So partly because I want to know what my score is, but partly because of that. If it's over 6 inches for me, it's not a gimme. So I
Yeah,
got to put those.
yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, that kind of covers our topic list. Have you been following any of the match play or anything else golf related you want to throw a mention in right now?
A little bit, yeah. I've been the one thing about the pandemic is able to up my intake of golf on TV. So I've been watching a little bit of the match play. It was kind of interesting because it's an entirely different format. It seems to favor certain players that don't always do well in tournaments when they just have the one other person to deal with. But I have noticed a few players that are a lot better than you'd know from TV coverage because the PGA tends to cover their favorites all the time. Then you hear a name like Perez come up yesterday, and you look at his track record. And it's pretty impressive, but you never hear of him. There's a few on the leaderboard you see every week like that. A few guys that just are there week after week, but you never see TV coverage. So I've been enjoying watching a few of those guys. How about you?
Hmm. Well, I got to admit, the thing that's going to stick with me from this particular go round of the match play is um, Rory hitting into somebody's swimming pool in his open round match, where he got destroyed by Ian Poulter. And I mean, being destroyed by Ian Poulter is not the headline here. It's the fact that it's Rory McIlroy is the one that was getting his lunch taken from him by Poulter, who's never really amounted to much as a singles player on tour. But again, it's what you said before, is certain players just somehow manage to come alive in match play. And I sometimes wonder whether or not a guy like Poulter gets it into his head. It's like, okay, it's me against whoever this is, and I hate the guy. I want to beat the guy. I want to make him cry, kind of thing. Because you get that look in his eye, and you're just like, okay, that's like one step away from a Bond villain kind of thing going on there. But yeah, I mean, but I watched, what was it I was watching? So I caught the end of the Lee Westwood and Sergio Garcia match the other day when they were in their playoff, and I remember sitting there watching Westwood's final tee shot and thinking, "Wow, he just really put some good pressure on Garcia, because that's I'd be happy with a putt like that on a playoff hole." And what do you know, Sergio walks up and cans it.
Yeah,
And it's like, wow, okay. So yeah, it's been interesting. I think the final four started this morning, so it'll be interesting to see who survives and claims the title as best match play golfer this year. Anyway,
yeah. I think I see Sergio followed up yesterday with he can never seem to put it together. Him and Rory have trouble closing deals these days. But on the just backtrack quickly to the Poulter. I know golf fans listening and watching are probably familiar with Connor Moore, but if you're not, you got to check out the Connor Moore Ian Poulter impression. That made me appreciate Ian Poulter a whole lot more in this tour. It's spot on. So yeah, you gotta go check that out if you haven't.
I will definitely make sure I have a look at that and maybe throw them up on the blog so more people can enjoy him.
Yes.
So I think that's about it for this episode. So everybody join us next time when Dan and I have a little bit of something that's March Madness themed, even though by the time you hear it, it will be in April. So until then, everybody keep hitting it straight, just not straight at us.
Cheers.